Have you ever felt like you were being pushed to your absolute breaking point? Like, no matter how hard you worked, it was never enough? That's exactly where I found myself, until one day I made a decision that changed everything. What happened next? Well, let's just say it was completely unthinkable. Stick around because this story might just change the way you see your own limits. This hook is designed to grab attention, create curiosity, and encourage viewers to keep watching. It sets the stage for an emotional and relatable story, while promising an unexpected twist. The office was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, my fingers trembling over the keyboard. My boss had just thrown another stack of files on my desk, his voice sharp and demanding. "This needs to be done by tomorrow morning. No excuses." It wasn't the first time he'd pushed me to my limits. For months I'd been working late nights, skipping meals, and sacrificing my personal life. I was exhausted, both mentally and physically. But every time I thought about quitting, fear held me back. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown. That day, something inside me snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. The constant pressure, the lack of respect, the feeling of being invisible. I decided to confront him. My heart raced as I walked into his office, my hands clenched into fists. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice shaking but firm. He looked up, annoyed. "What is it now? Can't you see I'm busy?" I took a deep breath. "I can't keep doing this. I'm human, not a machine. You've pushed me too far." He laughed, a cold, dismissive laugh. "If you can't handle the pressure, maybe you don't belong here." Those words stung, but they also ignited something in me. I walked out of his office, my mind racing. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew one thing. I couldn't go on like this. The rest of the day was a blur. I sat at my desk, staring at the clock, counting down the minutes until I could leave. When the workday finally ended, I didn't go home. Instead, I went to a quiet park nearby. I needed to think, to clear my head. As I sat on a bench watching the sun set, I realized something important. I had been so focused on surviving each day that I had forgotten what it meant to truly live. I had let my job define me, and in the process, I had lost myself. That night, I made a promise to myself. No matter how scary it was, I was going to take control of my life. I didn't know how yet, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. Little did I know that decision would lead to something I never could have imagined. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. The weight of my decision pressed heavily on my chest. I had spent the entire night tossing and turning, replaying the conversation with my boss in my head. His words echoed, "If you can't handle the pressure, maybe you don't belong here." But this time, instead of feeling defeated, I felt a spark of defiance. I didn't belong there, not in a place that treated people like machines, not in a job that drained the life out of me. I deserved better. I got dressed, my hands trembling as I buttoned my shirt. My reflection in the mirror looked tired, but there was a flicker of determination in my eyes. I grabbed my bag, took a deep breath, and walked out the door. The office felt different that day. The usual buzz of keyboards and hushed conversations seemed louder, more suffocating. I sat at my desk, staring at the resignation letter I had typed up the night before. My heart pounded as I read it over one last time. "Dear," boss's name, "after much thought, I have decided to resign from my position, effective immediately. This decision was not made lightly, but I believe it is the best choice for my well-being and future. Thank you for the opportunities I have had here." It was short, professional, and to the point, but it felt like a lifeline, a way out of the prison I had been trapped in for so long. I stood up, clutching the letter in my hand, and walked to my boss's office. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but I forced myself to keep moving. I knocked on the door, and his sharp "come in" made my stomach churn. He looked up from his desk, his expression impatient. "What is it now?" I placed the letter in front of him, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "I'm resigning." For a moment he just stared at the letter, his face unreadable. Then he leaned back in his chair, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You're making a mistake," he said coldly. "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. I simply turned around and walked out. The walk back to my desk felt surreal, like I was floating. My coworkers glanced at me, their eyes filled with curiosity and concern, but I didn't stop to explain. I packed my things, my mug, my notebook, the small plant I had kept on my desk, and walked out of the office for the last time. As I stepped outside, the sunlight hit my face, warm and comforting. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of relief. But it was short-lived. The reality of what I had done hit me like a wave. I had no job, no income, and no plan. Fear crept in, whispering doubts in my ear. What if I can't find another job? What if I fail? But then I remembered the suffocating feeling of being trapped, the endless nights of stress and exhaustion. I had made the right choice. I was sure of it. Over the next few weeks, I applied for jobs, attended interviews, and tried to stay positive. It wasn't easy. Rejections came, and so did moments of doubt. But I refused to give up. Then, one afternoon, I got a call. It was from a small startup I had applied to weeks ago. They wanted to offer me a position. The pay was less than what I was used to, but the work sounded exciting and the team seemed passionate and supportive. I accepted the offer without hesitation. As I hung up the phone, I felt a surge of hope. This was my chance to start over, to build a life where I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. But little did I know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change everything. The first day at the startup felt like stepping into a different world. The office was small, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in colourful sticky notes. The air buzzed with energy, and everyone seemed genuinely excited to be there. It was a stark contrast to the cold, sterile environment I had left behind. I was introduced to the team, a group of passionate, creative individuals who welcomed me with open arms. There were no harsh demands, no condescending remarks. Instead, they asked for my input, valued my ideas, and treated me like an equal. It was refreshing, but also a little overwhelming. For the first few days, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was so used to being micromanaged and criticized that I didn't know how to handle the freedom and trust I was given. But slowly, I began to relax. I realized that this was what work was supposed to feel like, a place where you could grow, learn, and contribute without fear. The projects were challenging, but in a good way. I was encouraged to think outside the box, to take risks, and to learn from my mistakes. For the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something meaningful. But the best part was the work-life balance. I no longer had to sacrifice my health and happiness for my job. I had time for myself, for my family, and for the things I loved. I started going for walks in the park, reading books I'd been meaning to get to, and even picked up an old hobby I had abandoned years ago. It wasn't always easy. There were days when I doubted myself, when I wondered if I had made the right decision. The startup was still finding its footing, and there were moments of uncertainty. But every time I thought about my old job, I knew I had done the right thing. One afternoon, as I was working on a project, my new boss, a kind, approachable woman, walked over to my desk. "How's it going?" she asked, her tone warm and encouraging. I smiled. "It's going well. I'm really enjoying this project." She nodded, her eyes filled with genuine interest. "That's great to hear. Let me know if you need any support or resources. We're all in this together." Her words stayed with me long after she walked away. For the first time in my career, I felt like I was part of a team, not just a cog in a machine. As the weeks turned into months, I began to thrive. I was learning new skills, taking on more responsibilities, and even mentoring some of the newer team members. The fear and self-doubt that had once held me back was slowly replaced by confidence and a sense of purpose. But just when I thought things couldn't get any better, something unexpected happened. One evening, as I was packing up to leave the office, my phone buzzed. It was a call from an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was familiar, but it took me a second to place it. It was my old boss. My stomach dropped. Why was he calling me? "Hey," he said, his tone uncharacteristically soft. I heard you're doing well at your new job." I was stunned. This was the same person who had once told me I didn't belong, who had pushed me to my breaking point. And now he was calling me? "Yeah," I replied cautiously. "Things are going really well." There was a pause, and then he sighed. "Look, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." I froze. Those were words I never expected to hear from him. He continued, his voice tinged with regret. "After you left, I started noticing things. The way I was running the team, the way I treated people, it wasn't right. Your resignation made me realize how toxic things had become. I've been trying to make changes, but I know it doesn't erase what happened." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to thank him for the apology, but another part of me was still angry. Angry at the way he had treated me, at the way he had made me feel small and insignificant. In the end, I simply said, "I'm glad things are better now." There was another pause, and then he said, "I hope you're happy where you are. You deserve it." The call ended, and I sat there staring at my phone. My emotions were a tangled mess. Relief, anger, sadness, and even a little bit of closure. I thought about everything I had been through, everything I had overcome. That call was a reminder of how far I had come, but it also brought up old wounds I thought had healed. The next day, I shared the conversation with a close friend. They listened patiently, then said something that stuck with me. Sometimes people change, but that doesn't mean you have to forget what happened. You can forgive, but you don't have to go back. Those words helped me put things into perspective. My old boss's apology didn't erase the past, but it did give me a sense of closure. I had moved on, and I was in a much better place now. But little did I know, this unexpected twist was just the beginning of another chapter in my journey. Looking back, I realized that my old boss pushing me to my limits was the best thing that could have happened. It forced me to confront my fears, to stand up for myself, and to take control of my life. I learned that it's okay to walk away from something that's hurting you. It's okay to put yourself first, and most importantly, it's okay to take risks. The journey wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. But every step of the way, I grew stronger and more resilient. I discovered parts of myself I didn't even know existed. Parts that were brave, creative, and capable of so much more than I had ever imagined. My new job became more than just a place to work. It became a place where I could thrive, where I could be myself without fear of judgment or criticism. The team became like a second family, supporting me and cheering me on every step of the way. And then, one day, something incredible happened. I was offered a promotion. It wasn't just a recognition of my hard work, it was a validation of everything I had been through. I had taken a leap of faith, and it had paid off in ways I never could have imagined. As I stood in front of the team, accepting the promotion, I felt a surge of gratitude. Gratitude for the people who had believed in me, for the opportunities I had been given, and for the strength I had found within myself. But the most important lesson I learned was this: your worth is not defined by your job, your title, or anyone else's opinion of you. Your worth comes from within, from the courage to stand up for yourself and the determination to keep moving forward no matter what. If you're in a similar situation, don't be afraid to make a change. You deserve to be happy, to be respected, and to live a life that's true to who you are.